Why I hate Helldivers 2. I've never seen a video recommended more to me than this. I was getting pinged over in my Discord. I was getting DMs. I was getting hit over on Twitter. You name it, it was coming at me that I needed to check out this video by Zoned. Now, I've never seen any of their work, but if I take a look at this video right now, just from the thumbnail alone, it's got 380,000 views on it, and it's 2 days old. So apparently whatever Zoned is saying here in the video is resonating with YouTube and apparently with the Helldivers community. So I'm excited to see what they have to say. If you're new here and you want to help support the channel, you know what to do. Please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell. And let's check out what Zoned has prepared for us.
Helldivers 2 is a one-of-a-kind game. When it released, it was like a pile driver to the whole gaming industry that had so many people trying to log on that there were queues going on for hours just to boot into the lobby. Everyone was playing and enjoying Helldivers 2, and it was hailed as an instant classic. And the developers, Arrowhead, were game dev heroes, an indie team putting out a live service game that became the highest selling PlayStation game on Steam by a mile, and at one point even beat GTA Online in concurrent players.
Crazy.
That is unheard of. It wasn't for nothing either, because this game at launch was my favorite online game of all time. It was beautiful, it ran swimmingly, and it felt amazing. Seriously, the controls felt so good, and it struck a perfect balance of random funny chaos and complex systems that made it one of a kind. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but this is a live service game, and we can trust Arrowhead to fix it. After all, a game this good couldn't have been an accident. Eventually, most people who played the game moved on and got to live with this as the version of the game in their memory. Unfortunately, I was not one of those people, and after years of updates that consistently make the game I loved worse, I now believe a game that good could have most definitely been an accident. So, sit back, relax, grab some snacks, and let me tell you why I hate Helldivers 2.
They mess up the easiest stuff, and it's like, how are you not supposed to get upset?
But interesting. Apparently, we forgot to change the coding.
A lot of these changes were targeted towards the Coyote.
For the love of God, please just listen to your player base and fix your game. That was me. That was my voice. I recognize my voice. Wow. Intro on this one just nails Helldivers 2. It encapsulates everything that we've been through over the past 2 years, 2+ years, so beautifully. And the edit here is so well done. This is like the last video that I did with 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. The editing is just spot on. This takes a lot of time, so I can respect how much time was even put into that intro. The game definitely ran better back in the heyday, back before we had difficulty 10 and things like that. We had more things to shoot. I think the combat was probably quite a bit more chaotic than it is now because, again, we had more things to shoot at. There was more chaff, and the battlefields weren't laden down with things like War Striders and 9 million of something out there that takes an anti-tank to drop. It was just a lot of things to shoot at. I loved that version of Helldivers. I'm interested to see where this video goes because he's already touched on, he feels that Arrowhead struck lightning in a bottle by accident. I'm interested to see what he has to say as far as backing that up. Let's go.
Now here's the thing, this game is really hard to talk about, like 10 times harder than every other game I've ever talked about. And that's for a couple reasons. One, the patch notes don't tell the whole story. In more ways than one. Sometimes it's literal, because Arrowhead is infamous for not putting all the changes in the patch notes, but other times it's more complex. Take them nerfing the Breaker. Now on paper, it seems like it was a no-brainer. It was the only gun people were using, so it was obviously overpowered, right? Well, no. As someone who was there, the Breaker was just the only gun that didn't feel like you were shooting tickle bullets.
Correct.
2, this game didn't just trend downwards. There are times that the devs listened and went and buffed a whole bunch of stuff and fixed problems, and everyone was like, we're so bad. But the problem is the constant backtracking and actively malicious balance changes between these moments. So
I would also interject right here, and he's doing an excellent job all the way through this all so far, is that not only is it every now and then we get one of these mammoth buff patches, but it's like the buff patches come in because the community is in an uproar, the player counts are going down, probably Sony's on the phone calling them up like, yo, what the? So that's when these big buff patches come in. And then once the community is back engaged with the game, they're enjoying the game, then all of a sudden things just slowly get sliced out from underneath them.
So on the outside looking in, it looks like a passionate indie team still trying to figure it out. But the devil is in the details, and the details tell a very different story. But before we get into that, let me ask you a question. What is Helldivers 2? Now, if you said it's a horde shooter, congrats. You're like 99% of people with eyes. Unfortunately, the 1% that didn't say that is Arrowhead, who seem to be under the impression that they've made a 𝗲𝗀𝗻 game. And this disconnect seems to be behind a lot of the horseradish this game puts out. But two things here. One, if they were trying to make a hyper-realistic military shooter, then they failed on day one. When this game released, it had a pre-programmed group of enemies that always followed you and would start a fight the instant they cut up to you.
That said, the booty patrol. That was, yeah, they would just chase you all over the board when the game first started.
Now this makes sense if the game is supposed to be a horde shooter. I may not like it, but it makes sense. But if it's a 𝗲𝗀𝗻 game, then this doesn't fit, because why would it be this hard to tactically avoid conflict in a realistic shooter? But it makes total sense for a horde shooter trying to force you into a fight. And two, even if they are trying to make it a realistic 𝗲𝗻, there's a lot of choices they've made that just don't make sense. Like their one-sided beef with HATES that still, to this day, makes the game worse. All that to say, that even if they set out to make a 𝗲𝗻, what they actually made is one of the best horde shooters ever, and they have been fighting against that since day one. But it wasn't always like this. When the game launched, it was amazing. It looked stunning. The gameplay was amazing. The Galactic War was exciting. It released in a completed state with only a handful of bugs, and they were pro-consumer and only locked armor and guns behind war bonds. Wow, this might be the greatest game of all time. I will now go through how everything I just praised is now worse. This is going to be a short section, because the graphics still look great when you can see them. I'm not sure why, but the devs have cranked the fog effects all the way up to wumbo for no reason.
Fog, it's not that bad, guys. It's not that bad. Look at the screens. Yeah, like every planet we go to, it's fog, plus fog, plus fog. Then you go back to your Super Destroyer and the fog follows you back there. Man, this game had just, and Arrowhead has an infatuation with fog.
There are so many planet mods that reduce visibility that it gets to the point where being able to see is a luxury. And that leads us to another problem. The environmental modifiers are lame. Most of them boil down to either slowing you down, making it hard to see, or some unholy combination of the
both.
two. And the ones that aren't are just boring. Like, come on, y'all. Y'all have a whole galaxy's worth of possibilities, and all y'all can think of is cold weather. Seriously? Now, they're not all bad. I really like stuff like the meteorites and the fire tornadoes. That kind of stuff is interesting when they're not spamming it at you every 5 minutes. But credit where credit is due, it is better than being blind.
A little, probably an unknown fact is back when, I think it was the fire tornadoes first came out, maybe it was Hellmeyer, they had this thing, or at least they had this thing for me when I was playing the game, is that when you called in extraction, that's when they would show up and they would just blitz all over the pad at extraction and just almost make it impossible for you to even get to the extraction shuttle. You would eventually have to run, I think it was medkit armor with the infused boosters to try and get like the extra healing so you could run through it just to make, or run through the fire just to make it to the extraction shuttle. Now eventually those things got tamed back, but yeah. I love where this video is going so far. He's nailing on every single topic that I would touch on if I did a video like this. So 10 out of 10 so far.
Also, I gotta say, for a game that's centered entirely around liberating different planets in space, there is a startling amount of biomes in this game that are very normal, like 𝗏𝗏𝐺𝐻, Louisiana, or the desert, or Scotland. Now, it's not every biome, but for a game that entirely takes place in outer space, you'd think they'd take advantage of that and really go crazy with the environment.
Yeah.
But a lot of them feel like places here on Earth. Beautiful places, but still very normal for a game where you fight space bugs with laser guns. But I'll admit, those are just nitpicks. You know what isn't though? The fact that this game runs like Stephen Hawking. It has constant frame rate issues with crashing and hard knocking PCs, which could seriously damage your parts over time, plus reports of the game straight up breaking people's PCs. Now that last part has some debate on whether it's real or not, so take it with a grain of salt, but real or not, the fact that I wasn't even surprised when I heard of that happening speaks volumes. And this is made way worse by the bugs. Oh my lord. board, this game has more bugs than a terrarium. And this ranges from pretty harmless bugs, like when you hit the ground and start swimming randomly,
Snake
to
diver.
annoying bugs like enemies phasing through walls, to game-breaking bugs like constant crashing. This game has them all. Now here's the thing. Even in the most polished video games, bugs are gonna happen.
Yep.
It's just a fact. But this game has so many bugs that 1, stay in the game for ages, and 2, have a good chance of just being broken again in the very next update. Take
Facts.
fire, for example. Throughout this game's whole lifespan, I'm pretty sure it's worked correctly for a grand total of 15 minutes.
Yes.
There is constantly some weird client-side issue or a messed up hitbox. It's almost never spreading correctly, and it's been like this for years. Meanwhile, stuff like the spear going through enemy armor gets patched lickety-split. Why? Well, for some reason, Arrowhead heavily prioritized fixing bugs that benefit the player over everything else.
This right here.
Improving performance? Nope. Fixing up persistent bugs like enemies phasing through walls? Sorry, game development is
Give it to
hard.
me.
But you can bet your bottom dollar that the second they see shit like this, it's on site. But
Yes.
you know, a lot of these problems wouldn't even make it to the game if they tested the updates before releasing them. Yet for some reason, it seems like they just don't test at all. Don't believe me? Remember when they buffed the jetpack, but there was a bug where if you were holding forward on the controller when you
ragdoll.
landed, you would just fent flop? Or what about how currently in the game, there's a bug that breaks half of the climbing settings? Like,
Did he say fent flop? Yeah, man. Wow. It's like the greatest hits. Helldivers greatest hits here.
they just straight up don't work. How in the world did this update get out the door with a core mechanic not working? And why has it been in the game for months? Yes, you heard me right. Months. I don't care who you are or how small your studio is, this is unacceptable. So, quick update. The devs came out and said that they're adding and fixing a bunch of stuff, but here's the thing. 1, I don't trust them. 2, nothing's happened yet. And 3, they say weird shit like we'll fix stratagem ball bouncing by the end of the year, when modders have gone into the files and proven that it's a toggle that they can just switch off. So why the delay? Anyway, back to the video.
Wow. He's going everywhere. It's like he's exploring every corner of this topic. Yes.
But hey, at least the gameplay's still good, right?
Oh no. Yep.
The gameplay is what made Helldivers as popular as it was, but ever since launch, the devs have been in a never-ending war to try and suffocate all the fun out of the game, and occasionally they'll let you pay $10 for them to take the pillow off for a bit. But in order to understand what I mean, we gotta talk about what made it good in the first place, and how Arrowhead has made it worse. Number 1, the Galactic War. Now, if you don't know, the Galactic War is basically the story of the game, but what made it special is that it was more like a D&D campaign, where what the players did, supposedly, mattered, and it made one-of-a-kind stories that you were a part of. Stuff like Malevelon Creek, saving the super children, or earning the mechs through major orders wouldn't have been possible without this system. But nowadays, they use it for 2 things: jack shit.
They use it for 2 things: jack shit. Oh, hopefully that changes soon. I miss those days. I miss Malevelon Creek. I missed, what was it? I forget the name of the planet that we did, but it was the one where we went and saved the sick children. That one was incredible. All the campaigns, the just mysterious enemy types that would show up on planets just out of the blue. How we earned the mechs over on 𝗵𝗏𝗏. Yeah, man, that's when the game was really, really jamming.
Just don't do anything with it. Probably because it's better for their wallets to stop putting stratagems in major orders and make you buy a war bond instead. But don't worry, I'll get to that later. Here's the thing though. Even if they still did fun creative stuff with the Galactic War, it wouldn't solve the major issue with the system, which is the fact that the way it's set up, players have no say in how the story goes down. Let me explain. So, every planet has a health bar and a decay rate, and whenever you beat a mission, you make the health bar grow by a tiny bit, but the planet's health bar is constantly going down, which is the decay rate. And there's a few problems with this. 1, the decay rate makes playing on literally any planet that's not a major order pointless. And number 2, say there's a major order to liberate a planet, but in order to get there, you have to choose to liberate one of 2 planets. So based on everything I told you, you would look at the decay rates and go, this one has a smaller decay rate, let's go there. Based on everything you know, that's the obvious play. But what I didn't tell you is that each planet has a different health bar. So even if the decay rate is really low, the planet's health bar might be so big that going for the other planet with a higher decay rate is the right play. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, why didn't you tell me that before? That feels very deceptive. Good catch, because that's exactly how it is in-game. The game makes zero effort to explain any of this at all. I've already put more effort explaining it in this short paragraph than Arrowhead have in the past 2 years. But even if they did put all this info in the game, it still wouldn't matter, because they can and have adjusted the decay rate on the fly to force the outcome they want, which defeats the purpose of the whole system. But a war ain't nothing but a series of battles, and that's where this game really shines. While on the surface it looks like just another horde shooter, what made it different is what made it great. First things first.
Don't do that. Oh.
Shit ain't sweet. It is
wow. Yeah. This is, he's nailing, especially with the Galactic War. They don't tell you any of that in the game, right? They don't say anything there. All you see is a planet, and you see like whatever the resistance rate. That's it. What they don't show you is the planetary health. They don't show you anything, you know, they do show you the regen rate in game, but you know, you could be looking at a planet and it could say 0.25 regen rate, and you're like, oh man, let's go hit that planet. But what they didn't show you in game is that it doesn't have the normal 1 to 1.5 million health. It's got 5 million health. So you're smashing into another wall, an unseen wall. Plus, he didn't touch on it here, but you know, it's kind of baked into this discussion, is the Galactic War modifier. That thing, ever since it was introduced right around when we did this cities on Super Earth or whenever that was a disaster, in my opinion. That thing needs to go bye-bye, and I've told them many times that that thing needs to be axed.
Extremely easy to die in this game, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Everything in this game can and will game end you, and that includes your dumbass homeboy relieving your head from your shoulders with a shotgun. The game was pretty hard, but it wasn't unfairly hard. Almost every enemy had intuitive weak spots and ways to kill them quickly that made sense, but still required skill. And this made for a very unique balance between mowing down enemies and needing precision that I've never seen before. Also, the game just felt so good to play. It controlled silky smooth, and everything just felt right. And the stratagem system is amazing, and every part of it just tickles my brain. But ever since launch, this game has been on a never-ending campaign to make everything that made it good worse. And it's all been in the name of difficulty. Now, I know a lot of hardcore fans are probably saying to themselves, oh, he just wants to be overpowered and run around like Doom Guy.
Nope.
Well, they dox my address in the comments, but that's not what I'm saying.
Poor
what
Mr.
I am
Redacted.
saying is that, like anything in life, there's a way to do difficulty well and a way to do it not so well. For example, the new God of War games do difficulty horribly. On the highest difficulty, you're basically just trying to feather duster your enemies to death, because all that changes is that you do less damage while the enemies do more. On the other hand, a game like Sifu does difficulty really well, because it's challenging you to be better, while God of War is just trying to kill you. Dark Souls is another example of a game that does difficulty well.
They do well.
It's not just killing you because dying equals hard, it's teaching you something, and most importantly, it's fair. This shit ain't fair. Helldivers has had a very interesting relationship with difficulty throughout its whole lifespan. It's not like the game started off perfect, but the problem is that they just don't learn their goddamn lesson and keep making the same mistakes over and over and over because they want the game to be hard. And make no mistake, this game has always been hard, but for some reason it's like they take it personally when people are good at their game and will do anything to stop that shit, even if that means making the game miserable, because they're not trying to challenge you, they're trying to kill you. For example, early on in the game's lifespan, they saw that some people were doing the highest difficulty solo. So what did they do? They changed the spawn rate so that the less people you had in your party, the harder it was. So people like me, who only had one other friend who had the game, got a worse experience just because Arrowhead took offense to the fact that anyone dared to be too good at their game. Or take ragdolling. Ragdolling can be very funny, but like all jokes, when you repeat it too much, it gets very annoying, especially when it leads to your death. And everyone who played against automatons on launch learned that the hard way, because not only did they have insane aim, but the rocket robots ragdolled you constantly, had infinite ammo, and on top of that, they were everywhere. It made the automatons hard, sure, but also just not fun to fight, because getting ragdolled from out of cover and filled with lead isn't challenging you, it's just killing you. Now after launch, they fixed a lot of these problems, and I'm sure they learned from this and won't do the exact same thing again, right? Basically, every new enemy we've gotten has had problems like this that take forever to get fixed, which makes me think that Arrowhead doesn't think reoccurring problems like insane ragdolling or bad weak points are actually problems, because to Arrowhead, difficulty just means killing you.
I'll add in here too, he hasn't touched on it yet, but kind of underlying in this, as divers and as players, our health bars on our diver characters used to be much higher. And then it got to a point where Arrowhead felt that we had too much health, and they greatly reduced the health. We used to be able to take a hunter pounce and hit with the claws. Maybe it took just a little chunk of your health off. Now it takes you down maybe halfway. You take a couple hits and you're dead. Well, that kind of worked when it first started off. It wasn't the best change out there. I mean, obviously they were going to make us, or they were going for some sort of way of making us, very weak in the game, but they've still left our health where it was when they changed it, I don't know, a year and a half ago, but they've steadily buffed up the enemies with more and more and more damage. And so it's become this issue now that if you take a hit, you take a couple hits, you're down and out, you're dead. And it didn't used to be that way. And that was, I think, their way of jumping up the difficulty, which, as he's covering right now, is not how you do difficulty.
Look at the flesh mobs on release. Not only did these guys spawn constantly and have a ton of health, but they also had no weak points. What was the challenge? Not running out of ammo when you mag dump all 10 the game threw at you? What was it trying to teach you? Because the only thing it taught me is how to Alt F4 faster. It's not even just new enemies that are like this. Sometimes they'll go in and break old enemies just because. Take stalkers, for example. What they do is they turn invisible so they can sneak up on you and lick all over your back meat. But if you're watching your back, you can see them coming, and they teach you to pay attention to your surroundings. But one day, Arrowhead randomly decided that this good enemy needed to suck, so they made them almost completely invisible so you couldn't see them coming, which defeats the whole point. Why did they do this? To kill you more. That's it. Same with headshots. Why can I get headshot by the enemies in a PvE game? It's so you die more, because the amount of times you die is the only number Arrowhead cares about, well, aside from which gun is being used the most, which leads us to...
Bro, so you gonna just break my shit? So you gonna just break my shit? So you gonna just break my shit?
Yes.
Helldivers 2 has had serious balance issues since day one. Because with Arrowhead, it's nerf or nothing. And I know someone's already heading to the comments to say, well, actually, there's been more buffs than nerfs. And while that's technically true, it doesn't account for the fact that the nerfs are way more severe than the buffs. Just look at the Eruptor. Arrowhead straight up butchered this gun to the point where it was useless. And it took 3 buffs for it to be decent again. And the Eruptor is one of the lucky ones. Arrowhead has left a graveyard of mid in their wake. Why do they do this? What Arrowhead wants is for some guns to be very good at specific things, while some are just okay at everything, right? But here's the problem. The game is simply not set up for that. Before I continue, I need to make sure you know what a seed is. It's a little complicated to explain fully, but in this game, it's just what kind of enemies you'll be fighting. Like if you get a 𝗏𝗆𝗃𝗃 seed, you'll face mainly 𝗏𝗆𝗃𝗃s, as opposed to hunters if you get a hunter seed. Got it? Good. The reason that's important is because the game doesn't tell you what seed you're getting before you start the mission, and there's no way to switch your guns after the mission starts. So unless you're picking the strongest, most versatile guns, you're gambling the next 40 minutes of your life on the off chance you get lucky enough to get the seed you want. Why would I ever take the 𝗏𝗆𝗃𝗃 if the only time it's ever good is against the hunter seeds? I don't know about y'all, but that's just not a gamble I want to take. But credit where credit is due. Overall, the balance has improved from day one. I'm not sure how many of y'all remember, but like 98% of the stuff in this game was just straight up bad, especially stratagems. But you can use a lot more stuff now, and that's always a good thing. All right.
He just touched on a really important fact there. If you go back and look, I think it was the balancing blog that they put out right after, this is in early 2024, right after they did their first nerf patch. This is kind of one that I've touched on many times. I know a lot of other people in the community know about it. This was, I think his name was Patrik Lasota, over at Arrowhead, put out this lengthy blog, and it explained all the weapons. And if you go back and look at the weapons, like, it was crazy what we were dealing with when this game first came out. Like, how many weapons were light armor pen? And then they started going in, and as soon as we found the sweeper, well, that was knocked down. As soon as we found the shield backpack, that was knocked down. The railgun was knocked down because they felt it was one-tapping 𝗲𝗆𝗆𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 Titans, which it was, but the issue wasn't because of the weapon. It was actually a bug in the game that had to do with a PS5 or PlayStation player who would host the session. If they did that, then it became bugged and you could one-tap 𝗲𝗆𝗆𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 But yeah, if you go back and look at that, and I'll link it down in the video description, man, times have changed. You know, you had a few things that you could use that could actually keep you on your feet, and everything else was just total space garbage.
All right, back to complaining, because while it is better now, Arrowhead still can't help themselves. And when I say they nerf everything, I don't just mean they nerf the best stuff, because sometimes they'll just gut weapons for no reason.
Yeah,
like my
random.
baby, the arc thrower. Now, the arc thrower was never the strongest support weapon. Hell, most of the time it was barely top 4, but it just felt so good to use. It was basically a lightning sniper, but what made it special is that it had a mechanic where after you charge the first shot up all the way, you only had to charge the follow-up shots halfway, as long as you kept shooting. Plus, it had a major drawback, because if you weren't really careful with it, you would just smite your homeboy. And it was really fun to use. It had one tiny little problem though. It had the same bug that the railgun had, which made it able to kill 𝗲𝗆𝗆𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 pretty easily. So, the wrath of Arrowhead rained down upon it, and they ruined it. Apparently, the half-charge mechanic was a bug, and since the developers are gold medalists and looking a gift horse in the mouth, they took it out and ruined the range, so you had to get in close on the lightning sniper. Oh, and on top of that, after the nerf, some players found out they could use it to stun Hulks.
That took that away too.
Again, just because. Or how about the explosive crossbow? When it came out, it was useless, and they still nerfed it. But of all the examples I brought up, these are my favorite, because I have definitive proof that Arrowhead has genuine beef with HATES. Exhibit A. I'd like to introduce you to the Humble Sentry. See, these things have never really been all that good. They have limited ammo, they constantly trick shot you, and they're made out of paper mache. Every time you put one of these things down, it gets destroyed pretty much instantly, because all a charger has to do is walk it down and poof, it's gone. In fact, they are specifically programmed to rush them down aggressively, and all these things combine to make sure they are extremely useless. But contrary to what Arrowhead seems to think, people aren't stupid, and most people realized a lot of these problems could be negated by putting them on high ground. Keyword being negated, because they still weren't amazing, they were just usable. They could still gun your ass down, they still ran out of ammo pretty quickly, and bugs could still just walk up the wall and break it. It was just a little bit better. So you'd think that Arrowhead, the guys who desperately want this to be a hardcore military shooter, would see this and take pride in the fact that their players are using smart tactics to work around the weaknesses of the items, right? No. Instead, these guys rework stratagems so you can't place them on high ground, which is so ridiculously petty, it's not even funny. And it has caused a multi-year long issue where stratagem balls bounce when you throw them, even when you're not close to heights. And it makes stratagems, the game's most unique feature, feel inconsistent, random, and straight up worse. All because the devs apparently got their feelings hurt when people managed to make the dog shit sandwich they gave us even a little bit useful. Exhibit B, Hellpod steering. Landing on high ground was never an issue. The bugs in this game are basically Spider-Man and would go get your ass off of whatever rock you were on, and the other factions have guns. Plus, the important detail of how you're going to get down from the giant rock you landed yourself on made high ground something that was only useful in very specific situations, and something that should have never even been on the devs' radar, but it was. So the devs just broke Hellpod steering. If you are anywhere near a tall rock or building, the game will just lock up and you will be dropped wherever the game thinks you should. But not only that, they also changed it to feel way more muddy and sluggish than it did before. Because what's worse is that it barely works. Do you know how many times the game has forced me to land in a death trap or right on top of a giant ledge with no way to get down? A lot. And for what? So the 3 people who enjoyed sniping on a rock couldn't have fun anymore? I just cannot understand the thought process behind these decisions at all, and it's infuriating.
Plus, think of all the samples that we sunk into that tier 5 ship upgrade for power steering, and it doesn't work. I know a lot of us out there, you out there, me included, would just get caught in these death loops over on Cyberstan where it would just drop me straight into like a grinder pit or some sort of acid pool or something like that. I could not steer any direction. It was like, you're going there, you're going to die. And it didn't matter if my teammates threw me to the left, to the right, forward, back. It would dunk you right into there.
Because one of my favorite things about this game is how good the controls felt, but they keep making them worse for no reason. But you know what's worse than all that?
Real eyes, realize, realize.
Now, those of you who are big into Helldivers will notice that the examples I brought up a second ago all happened before or around the 60-day patch, and I used almost no recent examples. That's because I was saving them for this section, because the lesson they learned from the 60-day patch wasn't, hey, maybe don't do everything possible to ruin the player experience. It was that they should keep doing it, but in the most deceptive and damaging way possible. For example, instead of nerfing individual items, they'll do a massive sweeping change that makes the game feel way worse all around, but especially affects one item they don't like. Like when the cities came out and they changed orbitals so that they come in at a wacky angle. And this made all the orbitals feel worse, but especially affected the laser.
Yeah,
or how about when they went and made all the sidearms have crazy sway, horrible ergonomics, and made stopping to shoot with them worse by making them horribly inaccurate right after you stop moving. Yes, seriously. In the game that centers around running and gunning, they made every sidearm feel absolutely awful to run and gun with. Why? They were going after the revolver, which had been on their shit list for a while. It applied to SMGs too, but they've always been useless, so this was just another crazy stray dealt out by Arrowhead. But the funniest one is definitely when they buffed SMGs, but gave them insanely high damage fall off, while also buffing the damage resistance of enemies, so the SMGs ended up worse than they were before. Oh my god, it's so dumb. But the deceptive decisions aren't just stupid, sometimes they're very calculated. Like how they only seem to fix problems when it can benefit their wallets. Like how people were asking for a fire buff for ages, and look at that, it came out just in time for the new war bond that just so happens to have a fire weapon. Or how about how suppressors were straight up broken for half a year,
Redacted
and all of a
regiment.
sudden it gets fixed for the suppressor war bond. But don't worry, it still gets worse. Isn't it strange how they made players die to bleed damage faster right before selling armor that reduces bleed damage? Or how they nerfed the amount of ammo you can carry right before releasing armor that lets you carry more ammo? Because to me, it sounds like they're creating problems so they can sell you the solution, which is such a scummy and disgusting business practice, especially considering the fact that this is not a free-to-play game. You have to pay money to get this game, only to be faced with this genuinely disrespectful horseradish. And don't...
This guy is preaching. He is preaching straight, I don't know, 20 plus minutes right now of just preaching.
Give me that, oh, you could get the war bonds for free, just grind super credits. First of all, that doesn't solve this issue at all. And second, they give these things out 10 at a time. I'd be better off wandering the streets for a rogue $10 bill than grinding for hours just for them to nerf my new stuff.
Plus, it's boring.
Later. To anyone still grinding super credits, it's not worth your time because they simply don't. None of what I've talked about in this video would have happened if they did. We would not have been in multiple review bomb emergency patch situations if they did. Not to mention the multiple developers who have openly mocked the players. It's been like this since the very first update when they stealth buffed enemy aggression. After that update went live, they came out and said, "We are listening and we're working on improving our communication." And they said this exact same sentence like a week ago. In fact, the CCO himself said he would check in every 2 weeks for updates on community feedback. He failed week 1. I
posted about that over on the Unfiltered Helldivers Reddit.
am so serious. But there's one event that perfectly sums up the blatant disrespect that Arrowhead has for their players. Let's talk about the Coyote. When the Coyote first came out, it was absolutely loved.
The big finale.
Because it was the first AR to not be insanely mid, plus it lights stuff on fire. Anyway, at this point, Arrowhead already had a very long history of nerfing guns that people loved. So everyone assumed the Coyote was next. But then they came out with a dev update where they were like, oh no, it looks like we forgot to nerf the Coyote, haha. Which just... it was in poor taste. And come to find out, they didn't nerf the Coyote directly. What they did is they went in and changed the way fire works in such a hyper-specific way that the only thing it affected in any way was the Coyote. And if that's not enough proof for you, they straight up admitted that they nerfed it afterwards. But wait, it still gets worse, because in a recent AMA,
and they try to cover it.
CCO was all like, we didn't lie, it's just too complex, so we should never touch fire again. Are you fucking kidding me? Not only do you still nerf the gun after being so cheeky in your video, but you have the nerve nerve to try to pass it off like it was an accident, even though the other developers already admitted to it.
They admitted it.
Where do you get the nerve? And what's worse is that the nerf didn't even do anything. The gun barely changed. They went through all this for nothing because they just can't help themselves.
Yep.
Listen, I hope this video ages like milk. I really do. But the devs of this game repeatedly show that they don't respect the players until they get review bombed. And right after it's done, they go back to business as usual. My honest prediction is that at first, this video will look like it aged badly. Arrowhead is gonna fix a bunch of stuff when they drop the Warhammer war bond they key jangled in front of us, and everyone is gonna love the game again. But as time passes, Arrowhead will keep doing the same shit, and this video is gonna age like wine, but we'll have to see. Anyway, have a nice day. Bye.
Wow. So good. So good. Not only was the editing spot on, but the points that were laid out in this video, just one after another after another. Man, it's tough as a studio to try to dodge those when the internet has kept the receipts. I'm going to drop all of Zone's links down in the video description. Definitely go show the video some love, but yeah, this one came highly recommended, and I see why. What an absolute banger of a video by Zoned. I can see why it's earned 380,000 views in 2 days. We've heard what he has to say. You've heard my commentary throughout. Now it's time to turn to you, my viewers. What did you think of the points that were laid out in this video? Definitely drop a comment and let's get a discussion going. If you haven't done so already, please remember to hit subscribe and to ring the notifications bell so you can receive my future upload alerts. If you're on mobile, you can swipe to hype the video. And before I go, I want to say thank you to all of our incredible hardcore channel members because they make content like this possible. Until the next one, this is 𝗏𝗏𝗶𝘀𝗶𝘀𝗍 signing off.